most of this will start with the MMP process at the start of a project. Can you give us an understanding of what you think the power of utilising an MMP by the DALCOP and the power of that in the construction process of the project, and perhaps where you would start with that process?
Yeah, so I mean, MMPs, I don't know, maybe for people kind of coming into the industry, they might think it's always been there, but it only kind of came in, was it 2011, sort of through Claire. Before that, it was kind of the only ways in which you had to reuse material or to use material like that was through permits or exemptions or anything. The key thing with MMPs, I suppose, is how it what it looks at, and when you or people even thinking of material as a waste, you think of waste, which is legally defined as anything that you're required to discard, or you're forced to discard, or you can't kind of use and you need to discard it. But you sort of think it used to apply to like household waste and and industrial sort of outputs and all things like that. But it also it is soil. So if you're excavating soils and you can't use it and you have to dispose of it, it's a waste. And as soon as it's defined legally as a waste, then it's subject to the Waste Framework Directive, and the Waste Framework Directive is kind of clear in its approach. If you want to, move or reuse waste, then you've got to use an exemption, or you've got to use a permit, or sort of like a RAP quality protocol, all things like that. And they are, they're very sort of qualifying factors. Like RAP can only be inert, aggregate kind of material. The exemptions and the position statements are very small, defined, specific kind of areas or specific kind of quantities or materials that you can use, because the volume is such that it's so small that the EA won't bother to regulate it, or won't consider it a high risk activity. And then the permits, the catch-all amount of the permits were incredibly long-winded, lots of process to go through, kind of costly, lots of EA involvement, then lots of monitoring and processing, then permit and surrender. It just wasn't happening, and people weren't buying into it. So of course the Code of Practice came in when in an attempt to alleviate the pressure on the EA and to make it easier, and it does make it easier, and that, which is one of the massive sort of benefits of it, in that you take you apply the Code of Practice to your site, to your materials reuse. You have to qualify with the 4 factors. I'm not going to go into a lecture on exactly what the Code of Practice is and how to do it, but it aims to say that you've never had a waste in the first place. And if you've never had a waste in the first place, you don't have to comply with the waste regs, and you don't have to go down any of those routes. So it is a voluntary scheme, but it's supposed to simplify it. It's supposed to be fairly straightforward. And it's cheap, and it's cheaper. You just need to get your your MMP documentation in place, and of course you need to ensure that what's being what you said you'll do, you do, and you need to validate it afterwards. I suppose it's easy in principle. It can be more difficult when you get down to it, perhaps for reasons we'll discuss later. But it should allow, using consultancies doing the legwork, using qualified person that's done through Claire, as taking that kind of almost like regulatory responsibility, a bit like the National Quality Mark Scheme, or a Silk or someone, to take that kind of level of personal responsibility to say, well, yeah, this is okay, this is in line with the guidance, this isn't a waste material, it's not subject to the waste regs, and therefore that's why you can use it in this way. And the best things to do are your natural soil transfers, your transfer of topsoil from site to site, which is used all the time, and your subsoil for raising levels and things like that. The direct transfer ones are certainly the most straightforward, but it allows you to use on-site reuse of material as well, which are kind of more complicated, but still far easier. You get you've got a good paper trail. As a sort of client, you'll have a document saying this is what we wanted to do, this is how we've done it, this is how it's all okay, and this is the sign off afterwards. So it's a really easy way to sort of make sure that you can comply, you're complying with everything, and especially when people are so worried about responsibility or liability and everything, it's that good sort of bit of evidence to have.